Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm really excited to bring you today's video. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's get started. GiGi Wu was one of Taiwan's most renowned climbers, but those who knew her saw not just a woman who conquered mountain summits, but also a phenomenon with a huge following on social media platforms. Known as the Bikini climber, Wu created a unique style by taking photos of herself in a bikini at mountain summits, captivating followers with her boldness and free-spirited approach to climbing. Taiwan's climbing community, and even her international followers, admired her courage and her adventurous spirit. However, GiGi Wu's climbing story went much deeper than the images shown on social media. Yes, she might have been climbing mountains in a bikini, but behind those photos was an incredibly experienced climber. Climbing in Taiwan was often not only a physical challenge, but also a battle against nature itself. Wu had reached the highest peaks in Taiwan, gaining invaluable experience by overcoming various difficulties. But Wu was not just using physical strength to reach the summits. She was also fueled by mental endurance and inner strength. Although Wu was often seen posing in a bikini at mountain summits, she was regarded as a figure who embodied a deeper meaning of climbing. With every photo, she showed that overcoming the challenges faced by a climber was not just a matter of physical strength. As she scaled mountains, she faced mental barriers, fears, and solitude. Many people found her courage and freedom inspiring. However, balancing social media fame with climbing was not easy. Climbing was a sport that required not only bravery, but also careful planning and risk management. Wu attracted a lot of attention on social media by climbing mountains in her bikini. Yet behind these images was a great struggle. Mountaineering required battling harsh weather, cold temperatures, high altitudes, and profound loneliness. GiGi Wu had learned to face these challenges, mastering every phase of climbing. Her bold stance in her photos was merely an outward reflection of her true identity as a climber. Before embarking on this journey, GiGi was already a respected figure among climbers in Taiwan. Her climbing history included countless ascents and a series of mountain summits. However, her social media followers were not only limited to climbing enthusiasts. Many admired her lifestyle, courage, and passion for climbing. Still, behind the attention and the followers, there was an internal motivation that led GiGi to approach her climbs more carefully and consciously. Wu was well known in Taiwan not just for her physical strength, but also for how she dealt with challenges. However, her unique style and the popularity it brought raised questions about how careful she was with critical decisions and the difficulties of mountaineering. It became increasingly clear that everything was not as it seemed. Her courage on social media and the admiration of her followers did not obscure the real struggles and experiences she faced on her climbs. Wu's true identity as a climber would soon be revealed in her journey. This climb, however, would bring an extremely important lesson about mountaineering. GiGi Wu's climbs were much more than just bold appearances, and she was strong enough to continue her struggle alone on the toughest trails. But nature's power proved to be a much greater threat than any climber could predict. GiGi's journey would show how overwhelming nature and solitude could be, even for the most experienced climbers. GiGi Wu's famous face and success on social media earned her a significant following. Yet her love for mountaineering and her passion for reaching new heights would always make her a figure remembered as a woman who climbed to the top. This first chapter spoke not only of the social media images, but also about the challenges and successes of a real climber's life. In the next chapter, however, this journey and inner struggle would be revealed in a much more painful way. January 2019, GiGi Wu made the decision to embark on a solo climbing expedition in Taiwan's Yushan National Park, home to some of Taiwan's highest and most difficult mountains. The park was known to be both an attractive and dangerous area for climbers. Wu planned to discover new summits and further develop her climbing skills. Yushan was a region not only well known in Taiwan, but globally as one of the most challenging peaks to scale. High altitudes, sharp ridges, and tough weather conditions were the main challenges climbers faced. GiGi Wu had always had a special interest in solo hikes since she began climbing. She saw herself as a figure who could face nature alone and test her inner strength. Her social media posts often reflected not only her physical strength, but also her mental resilience during these solitary journeys. On her trip to Yushan, Wu decided to share every aspect of her climb with her followers. As she embarked on her week-long trek, she informed her followers through her social media account, sharing details of her plans. She would once again climb, in her bikini, conquer new summits, and prove herself against the forces of nature. However, this journey would become one of the most challenging experiences of GiGi Wu's life. Yushan National Park was a high-difficulty area. The mountains here were suitable only for professional climbers, consisting of dense pine forests and narrow trails. Though Wu's years of experience should have made the climb easier, nature's power always posed an unpredictable threat. GiGi had successfully conquered many tough trails in the past, but this journey would serve as a test for her understanding of how harsh and unforgiving nature could be. As she progressed toward Yushan, GiGi Wu's goal was not just to climb the Sao mountains. The journey presented her with not only a physical challenge but also a spiritual one. The ability to survive alone in tough conditions had always been a source of inspiration for her. As she advanced toward the summits, each step made her feel more isolated, deepening her connection with nature. While comments on her social media posts were often encouraging, she also received criticism at times, with some saying she was taking her climbs too lightly. However, GiGi always ignored such criticisms and focused solely on her internal journey. This hike marked an important turning point in Wu's life. Her journey to Yushan was a perfect opportunity to reaffirm her passion for Taiwan's summits and push her personal boundaries in solo mountaineering. Yet, the road to this goal would not be as easy as she had thought. GiGi Wu was prepared for the harsh climate of the mountains, but there was another element this time: loneliness. Surrendering herself entirely to nature would challenge her, both physically and mentally. Each day spent in Yushan would remind her how complex and dangerous it could be to be alone with nature. While GiGi Wu's preparations for this journey reflected her experience in mountaineering, the challenges of nature were unpredictable. Sometimes weather conditions could change unexpectedly, and rocky paths could be more dangerous than usual. However, GiGi had set out with a desire to conquer Taiwan's highest peaks and to be a part of this journey. From the moment she set foot in Yushan, she realized that this journey was not only a physical test, but also a spiritual trial. But at this point, a series of challenges awaited her. While Yushan National Park was captivating with its natural beauty, its rugged terrain and changing weather conditions made it a risky area. As GiGi carefully advanced with each step, she would soon realize that this trail was not as innocent as it appeared, and this was only the beginning. On the 8th day of her journey, while continuing her difficult climb in Yushan National Park, GiGi Wu encountered an unexpected disaster. Up until that point, she had only faced tough trails, steep slopes, and dense forests. But this particular path would push her to her limits. A momentary lapse in concentration led her to a fatal accident. While climbing at high altitude, GiGi lost her balance and fell down a cliff. Although she screamed loudly, she felt her voice disappear into the depths of the mountains. During the fall, she severely injured her leg. As her body writhed in pain, she remained motionless in place. Unable to move her leg, a wave of pain spread throughout her body from her other injuries. For a while, she focused on trying to catch her breath, but the cold air and the pain in her body made each passing minute more unbearable. GiGi's survival instincts kicked in. She tried to pull herself together and reached for her backpack. She managed to retrieve her satellite phone and, after some difficulty, managed to get a signal. Her trembling hands made it harder, but she eventually succeeded in turning the phone on. During a quick conversation with her friend, she explained the emergency and requested help. She immediately asked her friend to contact Taiwan's mountain rescue teams. After making the distress call, GiGi saw only a glimmer of hope in the face of the dangers awaiting her. However, time was working against her. Deep in the mountains and with the harsh conditions of Yushan, it had become nearly impossible for the helicopters to reach the area. Poor weather, mountain fog, and strong winds were hindering the rescue team's movement. Unable to move, GiGi could only continue her fight for survival mentally. Each passing hour was quickly lowering her body temperature. High altitude and the nighttime cold were presenting her with a life-threatening chill. GiGi realized that the clothes she had were not providing enough protection. As a climber, she knew she should have been better prepared for this kind of situation, but unfortunately, she had made a mistake this time. The cold and shivering in her body were signs of an increasingly worsening condition. Battling against the rainy and windy weather, her body was struggling to fend off the cold. Mentally, she hoped for rescue as soon as possible, but at the same time, she was trying to maintain her resilience to survive in these conditions. In her mind, on one hand, there was the helplessness created by the time it took for the rescue teams to arrive, and on the other, she felt how vulnerable she was in the face of nature's power. Deep in the mountains, the only sounds were the few birds and the wind. With each passing minute, her pain and cold were becoming more unbearable. GiGi was aware of the inexperience that came with being immobilized. Despite her extensive climbing history, she couldn't find an answer on how to survive in such a situation. She was only trying to remain mentally strong, but physically everything was rapidly deteriorating. As the hours passed, GiGi's hope was beginning to fade. The only thing surrounding her was the silence of the mountains, and as her body temperature dropped slowly, the deadly cold winds became more intense with each passing moment. GiGi held on to the hope that the rescue teams would reach the area soon. She had to endure until help arrived, but under these conditions, she had no idea how much longer she could survive, so alone and in so much pain. After GiGi Wu's distress call, Taiwan's mountain rescue teams immediately sprang into action. However, reaching the depths of the Hui Mountains was not easy at all. Taiwan's mountaineering rescue units consisted of many experienced climbers and helicopter operators, but the greatest obstacle they faced at that moment was the weather conditions. Thick fog, strong winds, and constantly changing weather were preventing the helicopters from reaching the area. Due to the high winds at the mountain's upper points, the helicopters couldn't take off, and every attempt failed. The rescue teams in Taiwan prepared their ground teams and planned routes to reach the area by land, but this would take many more hours and would be an even more challenging process. Meanwhile, GiGi was losing more and more time with each passing minute, making it more difficult for the rescue teams to reach the area. In the hours after her fall, she found herself in the middle of a battle for survival. Her body, weakened by the cold, had reached an unbearable level of pain. Not only was her leg injured, but every movement she made her body gradually wear out. The feelings of loneliness and helplessness had become another major enemy alongside the physical pain. Mentally, she was trying to suppress the pain, sometimes using all her strength to fight the dropping body temperature. Yet the cruelty of nature and the discomfort brought by isolation were becoming deeper with each passing minute. After receiving GiGi's distress call, her friends and the rescue teams had made a great effort, but under these conditions it seemed impossible for the helicopters to reach the area. Flights had been canceled, and the ground teams would take a long time to reach such a difficult location. GiGi was worried not only about the dangers of illness and hunger, but also how long her body could endure the strain caused by the fall. She leaned against the rocks and stayed still for a while. The trembling in her body grew stronger, and the question of whether the rescue team would come or not kept echoing in her mind. The cold was both restricting her breath and paralyzing each part of her body. Some of the water and food supplies in her backpack had run out, and the biggest threat now was how long she would survive in this struggle for life. The surrounding nature was a wild world that carried no trace of human handiwork. With the wind intensifying with each moment, GiGi's chances of survival were growing slimmer. After a while, the preparations for the ground teams to reach the area were completed. However, it was a long journey and a challenging route. GiGi's pain and cold were steadily increasing. Slowly, her patience was wearing thin as she thought about how far away the rescue teams were. This uncertainty that lasted for hours was weakening her both physically and mentally. In her mind, the survival instinct gave her strength, but her physical limits were being gradually surpassed. Mental resilience seemed insufficient to prevent her body from collapsing. The cold and exhaustion were gradually erasing her chances of survival. Yet, despite everything, GiGi kept fighting. In her struggle for survival, her instinct to live was stronger than anything else. In that moment, she wanted just one thing: to be rescued. Despite her inner strength, the lack of help was severely demoralizing GiGi. As the hours passed, her clothing became insufficient and her body grew colder. The injury to her leg became increasingly painful with every movement. At that moment, her only thought was for the rescue teams to arrive as soon as possible. While these thoughts spun in her mind, trying to survive on the edge of the cliff and the loneliness of being alone with nature posed much more of a threat than she had imagined. As the rescue efforts continued with all haste, GiGi's strength to survive was being tested. But on the other hand, her inner resilience was her only hope to endure this disaster until the end. Every minute spent between the cold, pain, and loneliness pushed the boundaries of her survival struggle. GiGi continued to wait, her mind fixed on a single thought: survive. GiGi Wu's battle for survival had slowly turned into a war against time and the cruel conditions of nature. The hours that passed waiting for help reduced her chances of survival with each passing minute. The rescue teams in Taiwan finally reached the area where GiGi had fallen by the evening of the next day. However, after such a long wait, the scene they encountered was horrific. GiGi, lying alone and immobile in the forest, had lost significant body heat, and her vital functions were seriously affected by the cold and the fall. In her fight for survival, the passing hours had drained her. Before help arrived, fighting the cold and maintaining her body temperature had become nearly impossible. With each passing minute, GiGi's weakness had increased, and her hope of survival had diminished. When the rescue teams finally reached the area, the harsh weather, fog, and the difficulty of finding GiGi in the deep mountains made the situation even more challenging. Despite the tough terrain, the teams bravely searched for GiGi. The injuries to her body and the damage from the fall had made it nearly impossible to save her. By the time they reached her location, it was too late. Her body temperature had dropped to critical levels due to the fall and the cold. As GiGi fought the consequences of staying in the cold for so long and being unable to move, the trauma had pushed her to her final point. Before the rescue teams, there was a horrifying scene. GiGi's body temperature had already dropped, and her heartbeat had become weak. The teams quickly tried to provide first aid, but time had already run out. With only a few hours difference, GiGi's chance of survival had rapidly diminished before the rescue arrived. Despite the best efforts of the rescue teams to safely carry her, her chances of survival had already evaporated. The passing of time, in the face of nature's ruthless power, was once again starkly visible. Despite GiGi's climbing experience, this time she had been too vulnerable to withstand the challenges posed by nature. The harsh face of the mountains had slowly eroded her chances of survival. No matter how strong nature is against humans, sometimes it can be so cruel that humans struggle to stand against it. The harsh weather conditions, GiGi's fall, and the subsequent battle for survival had gradually consumed her. Even though help had arrived, the lost time and nature's wild conditions made the efforts of the rescue teams insufficient. GiGi Wu, resting her head one last time against the hard surface of the mountain, passed away. When the factors that led to GiGi's death came together, the collaboration of time and nature became one of the main reasons for the end of her life. This tragic loss resonated deeply within Taiwan's mountaineering community and the world of social media. GiGi had become a symbol of courage, overcoming challenges with her fearless attitude, and turned her mountaineering identity into a social media phenomenon. However, this final journey, regardless of how experienced she was in climbing, once again showed how nature can always overpower even the strongest human spirit. Following GiGi Wu's death, a wave of deep sorrow spread across Taiwan and the world. The social media sensation known as the Bikini climber, who scaled mountain peaks with her free-spirited personality, had etched herself into the memories of many as a brave and unconventional figure. Not only in Taiwan, but around the world, many people knew her and followed her. GiGi's passion for mountaineering, captured in images of her climbing in a bikini, had become a symbol in itself. Yet her tragic death left a profound meaning behind this symbol. GiGi Wu had become an inspiring figure for everyone interested in mountaineering. Her solo hikes symbolized her courage and the deep connection she had with nature. Her social media posts had granted her a kind of folk hero status. However, this tragic event also brought to light the risks and dangers that come with mountaineering and outdoor sports. After GiGi's death, many people increased their interest in mountaineering to honor her courageous spirit. Within the mountaineering community, GiGi's memory became not just a symbol, but also a reminder for experienced climbers. You are always vulnerable in the face of nature's power. GiGi's story resonated widely on social media, sparking informed discussions about mountaineering. More voices were raised regarding the challenges of solo hiking and mountaineering. As GiGi scaled the mountain peaks alone, she simultaneously brought to light how perilous this risky sport could be. Mountaineering was reminded not only as a test of physical strength, but also as a sport that requires harmony with nature and respect for it. Her family, friends, and followers received the news of GiGi's loss with deep sadness. Her life had been a testament to her love for the mountains, and she had combined her passion for climbing with her life in a courageous way. Unfortunately, this adventure had led to the end of her life. After GiGi's death, many sought to keep her brave and free-spirited memory alive. Various memorial events and mountaineering organizations were held to honor her. Climbers following in her footsteps, just like her, climbed mountains with the desire to be one with nature, overcome challenges, and feel the freedom. However, at the same time, GiGi's story served as a cautionary reminder to everyone involved in mountaineering about how vulnerable they could be in the face of nature's immense power. The dangers associated with solo hikes and mountaineering became an important lesson for her followers. People began to better understand the risks behind GiGi's brave spirit and the challenges inherent in the sport. GiGi's tragic end once again showed how mountaineering and being alone with nature required a seasoned approach. GiGi Wu's name would continue to be remembered more and more on social media, and her passing would lead to even more intense discussions about mountaineering. However, the legacy she left behind was not just about being remembered as the bikini climber, but also about a deep passion for mountaineering and a reminder of humanity's vulnerability in the face of nature. GiGi's memory would remain a light in the hearts of all those who climbed the mountain peaks.